Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to introduce you to another Finnish baked good, which this time will be cinnamon buns. So in Finnish it's korvapuusti, and it's not exactly like a cinnamon bun that you would think of that you might find in the States, where you usually have kind of like a sugar glaze on top. These ones don't have that, but they do have some sugar like kernels on top after they're baked. And in my totally unbiased opinion, I think these are much better than the American versions. One key thing is that in the dough itself you use cardamom as a spice, and that really gives it that little extra something.
Wow, my whole mouth just filled with saliva.
When I smell freshly baked korvapuusti, it just immediately brings me back to Finland, to my grandma's house, because of course grandmas always make the best ones. So it's a bit tricky, it takes some practice to get them just right, but let's head inside and I will show you what you need to make these Finnish treats for yourself. Okay, so let's take a look at what ingredients we have. So we have milk, we have dry yeast, 2 packets, they're both 11 grams worth. We have 200 grams of butter, about 1 kilogram of flour. We have an egg, cardamom, and then we have sugar and salt in this one. So we can get started. First things first, I need to heat up the milk and get the yeast going. So let's get started. So the perfect temperature for the milk will be about 42 degrees Celsius. So that will get the yeast going, but it won't kill it. So we just wait. Okay, so now our yeast is incorporated and we need to add our sugar and our salt. So the sugar and salt I already pre-mixed in here. So in it goes. Then we add our egg and the cardamom. The cardamom is what makes these Finnish cinnamon buns. The flavor of this is what really distinguishes them from something I've had in the US. Definitely don't skip it. And now we start integrating. Let me actually put the butter on the reserve heat left over from when we heated the milk. That should soften up. And now we whisk up the egg and mix in the cardamom. And right now, you guys, I know you can't smell it and this looks a bit questionable, but this is like Finland in a bowl right now. You can smell the yeast and you can smell the cardamom, and this is just so good. Now we slowly start adding the flour. We add about, I would say 1/3 or half of it, slowly. Add just a little bit more flour, and then we need to add our butter. Okay, so let's see how our butter is doing. The butter should be soft so it mixes in with the dough. Okay, our butter is soft. It doesn't need to be all the way melted. In it goes. The softer your butter, the better it will, or the easier it will mix into your dough. And then all that's left to do is to integrate the rest of our flour here. And I think I'm getting very close to the point that I need to switch out to my hands, because this won't be mixing together with the spatula for much longer. It's getting quite heavy now. In fact, let's do that now. And when you're mixing it with your hands, you can also check that all of that butter is integrated and you don't have any lumps. And now we just mix the dough until it becomes smooth and kind of springy. Smooth and consistent is what we want. The dough is actually feeling pretty good without adding the last bit of flour, so I think we're gonna be good with just this, but let me see. And the reason I know that the dough is feeling good is it's not sticking to my hands much, and we don't want to make it too dry. So I think we are at a very good consistency. Let's just get it smoothed out. Okay, so once it's incorporated well and it's no longer sticking to your hands, we just put it back in the bowl and we let it rise until it doubles in size. I'm gonna cover it with that kitchen cloth and check back up on it in a little bit. All right, so let's check on our dough here. It is looking beautiful. I would say it's roughly doubled in size. So now let's get started with the next step. This is the trickiest part, at least for me, but let's see how we go. So since I made a full batch, the first thing you're gonna do is roughly split this in half. It's not an exact science, so don't worry if you don't get it exactly half. All right, now we set the other one aside. I'm just gonna cover that up again so it doesn't dry out too much. And then for this one, we need to just knead it a little bit to get all of the air bubbles out. And that might seem a bit counterintuitive, but we're still gonna let these guys rise again once they are all ready and molded. So now I just need to get this nice and flat into a kind of a rectangle. Okay, that looks just about right. Don't get frustrated if it doesn't want to stay in the shape. Just work it out as long as it kind of holds its shape here. All right. And try to make sure that it's kind of uniform in the thickness. Mine is a little bit thicker on this side, but I think we can work with that just fine. Okay, so now we will first spread some butter all over. Make sure that your butter is like touchably soft because you don't want to damage the dough more than you need to while you're spreading the butter out. All right, it looks nice and buttery. Now we spread the sugar. Right, and then that just leaves the cinnamon. So now we just need to roll it up and then the magic will happen. So I'm gonna start from this side where I had a little bit of the thicker dough. Hopefully that will then help me when I'm actually slicing these up. So what you're supposed to do is get these beautiful kind of ones where the bottom is wider, and then you pinch it at the top, so then you get the beautiful swirls on the sides. That one doesn't look half bad for the first one. These are going to be huge, but let's see, hopefully they won't explode too much. Okay, now I think we have the right thickness. Before it was just way too thick. You don't want it very thick at all. This is quarter of the dough, so I still have 1/4 left. And here you can really see the technique, so you want to cut them at a light angle to make these little triangles. That will help you then do this part, to squish them down and get those beautiful layers to pop open. Okay, so now these guys have been resting for about, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes while I finished all of the other batches. You can tell that they've puffed back up a little bit, and now I will give them a nice egg wash and finish them off with some sugar to give them a nice look before they go into the oven. So the sugar I'm using is these kind of pearls, just to give it a nice look then once they're all ready. So the cinnamon buns are out of the oven and they look absolutely amazing. Just take a look. I am so excited. With this recipe, patience is really the key, because getting the little swirls to form up correctly takes some practice. You probably saw when I was making these that as I went along, the shapes got better and better towards the end. So definitely just keep practicing. If you don't get them right the first time, they will be delicious regardless. Thank you for watching, and now it's time for me to taste this one. For all of the details and the recipe, check the description below. I've included everything you need to know there. And if you give them a try, send me a comment or picture of how they turned out. I'm curious to see what your baking looks like.